World-class lessons from the real estate industry's top 1%, empowering agents to think bigger and do more to create life by design. Get access to exclusive interviews with top producing real estate professionals. Listen in as we talk about their journey in the business, best practices, and lessons learned. Hosted by KIRO, NASRALAH, and John SCIPIONE.
I mean, one thing that we always say in our office is just action is better than perfection, right?
This is Light It Up with Lighthouse Residential.
Welcome back to another episode of Light It Up podcast. I am thrilled to have with us today a top producing agent in the Kansas City market. He's been in the real estate business 19 years. Last year, his small team of top producing agents produced over $50 million in sales volume, and this year they're on track to close over 205 transactions. We have with us Mr. David Van Noy Jr.
Why has it got to be a small team, bro? What's that about?
Well, you know, you say big team. I'm sort of downplaying what you guys are doing,
team.
You know?
Just say team.
Fair enough. It is a small team. It is a small team. By design.
By design.
Do you want to redo it?
Awesome. No, I think we're good.
We're good.
Now that you say that, you know.
Sorry.
No.
Well, you know, David, KIRO and I always like to have, a strong group of real estate professionals, people that we think will bring, tremendous value to this panel. So super excited to have you here and, spending a couple minutes with us this afternoon and just sharing some big ideas. And, obviously having you on the show after coaching both of us separately within our business, over the years, it was an easy decision for us. So thanks again for joining us.
That's kind of weird, right?
Especially to have all three of us here at the same time too, so that's going to be a good one.
Well, that's what I was saying with you before, is that I feel like I speak with you often, and I know Kiro's in some masterminds with you, and you guys talk, on your own, but it's rare that we get to have this sort of interaction.
So it's going to be cool.
So what are we going to talk about today? What kind of stuff are we going to get into? I'm excited to know.
Let's jump into it because
we didn't get any prep time. It's great because we're just going to go into whatever you ask me. Like, I'm just going to give it to you raw. I got no notes. I got nothing planned. We're just talking.
That's the best way to do it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, back when you and I were working together closely, I know you were sort of running your team as a high producing listing agent, right? One or two buyers agents. But I know over the last year or so, you've been transitioning into, this team structure. So walk us through where you stand today and what the goal is.
Yeah.
Well, I think like a lot of people, going from an individual agent to a team, it seems like a necessity these days where you've got to be able to drive leads, you got to be able to delegate. And it started out initially as a Mike Ferry agent. We were just trying to delegate kind of the buyer side activities and focus on the listing agent activities. And that was the goal for a long time, right? We're just see how many listings I could take personally.
Yep.
And see how many buy sides we could push to someone else without a whole lot of headache. Well, over the years, it's morphed a little bit, right, to where more and more people are trying to build a team where you can delegate more of it and maybe even push some of the listings and service more of the buyer needs and actually service the buyer agents instead of just pushing them out on a percentage or a referral and not treating them like part of your business. So my transition over the last 2 years, especially since COVID, has been to try to not just delegate, but create systems that can scale. So by using technology that can scale, by building a team that can scale, and by creating lead sources that have the ability to continue to scale in addition to the prospecting that we do.
Yeah. Well, talk to me a little bit about some of the technology you guys are using, because I know that's one of the things that you and I always sort of groove on is that, different CRMs and different platforms. What are you guys using today that's working really well?
Well, what we always like to talk about was how to organize ourselves and organize our team. And then it kind of, as you scale, you bring other people in, then you've got to collaborate, right? So we've got to figure out how to get more people on different documents and different systems. And so we've had different renditions about that we've talked about over the years. And now we're at the point where the systems are coming together. Back here, you can see right here, I didn't think about this, but this is my tech stack currently, or at least the majority of it, where we have a dialer that pushes it into Follow Up Boss in addition to other lead sources. And then we're syncing that up with our transaction software, which is open to close. And then we're generating leads with the Sierra and a Real Geek site that are pointing to both of those. In addition to what else? Well, I guess we're using Gmail and the Workspace, Google Workspace for everything else.
So that's actually a board that you just track all your tech?
Well, it wasn't even tracking it. Here's what I had to figure out. We have Dotloop. Some people use DocuSign. Our company uses Dotloop, and I avoided it for a long time. But once we finally got all that, like Follow Up Boss in place and some of the lead sources in place, my goal at that point was I don't want anybody on the team putting in data twice.
Right.
So if the lead comes in from a dialer, I want that to be able to push through all of our systems with a sync.
Yep.
And if we plug it in once, which is worst case scenario, right? That you plug someone's information in on Follow Up Boss once, then it should be able to go through our entire platform with a sync. Or even if you press one button or add a tag, that's fine.
Sure.
So that's what that does is once you're in our system, my administrative team never has to put your name in physically ever again.
And I think that's something that we always, I wouldn't say struggle with, but that's something that was always driving me nuts is that I'm like, why do I have his information here? I have him in Mojo. I have him in Follow Up Boss. I have him, and we're tracking all these different things, but none of them were talking to each other. Yeah. So I think that's...
that's the tech stack is the hardest. It's the hardest thing for people because every time you try to add some type of functionality that you think you need, you're like, do I have to log into a whole nother thing to have that? Like, why can't this do that?
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool about right now, I think, in real estate. And since we're on a podcast, I'm going to just pontificate on this for a second.
Yeah, let's do it.
Like, in the history of business, in the history of real estate, right? Like, 30 years ago, I started in the business 19 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had a pager on my khakis, and I would go in to the office when my pager went off, and I'd have to stand at a fax machine to get the offer. No joke.
Dude, you're dating yourself.
Right? I'm 41. I mean, look at me. I'm not that old, but this is how fast things have changed. Yep. And I used to do these classes on digital signatures in 2007. And these agents would tell me, like, this will never work. You can't do digital signatures, right? So go 10 years before that, there was a book. And in 1994, they were like, it'd be nice if this book was on a computer, right? But this window we have right now is like the one window in history where it still requires us, but it's really cool and easy, and you can build it the way you want to build it. Because 15 years from now, it's going to be on Amazon, right? And someone's going to go, I want to buy a house, boop, and the Jetsons are going to bring it to you. Like, that's where we're going to be in 10 years. So people don't get it. They should really appreciate right now, you get to build it, and it works, and you don't have to wear khakis and drive to the office.
Did you see how excited he just got about that whole thing? See, I feel like I'm so
excited.
In your next life, if you're not selling real estate, you are the guy who figures out the way that all of this sort of works together. Is that like logistics? Yeah. What is that?
I think it's his gift of being able to identify need, right?
I think you like solving the problems though too.
Necessity is the mother of all creation. So it's like, I think that David embodies all that. He's very innovative with trying to figure out new things.
My dad had a Nextel in like 1998 and this thing, and
I thought those only existed in New Jersey and like New York. You had to have like the spiky hair. Yeah.
No, we played the penis game on that all the time. Penis! Like, oh, shit.
Okay.
But I wanted to know how that thing worked. I wanted to know, like, what number the menu... that's... Like, some people care about that stuff. I don't think I'm solving any huge problems, but all these converging technology platforms, like, that's exciting to me. I don't know. I don't think that goes anywhere bigger than this, but it's cool.
It's cool because they all do their own thing, but no one's really coming up with a way yet for them all to talk to each other other than, like, quick things like Zapier and all that stuff. Yep. But no, I think we always appreciate you sort of being ahead of the game in that field and bringing all that value to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a question for you, David. One of the challenges that we've struggled with building out the team is finding good people across the board. and you're going in a very strategic manner. So the question I have for you is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face right now as you're growing?
Well, it's a good question. You know, I'm in a couple of masterminds with some of the best, what I think to be the best agents in the country. And I was on one yesterday with an agent that, you know, was talking about how to better train these people and why we're having turnover. And we're talking about, basically what we're talking about is how do you find good people and how do you know if, so he was like, you know, I had this guy in my office and he looked great, and then 30 days later the guy quits and like he blames it on me, like I didn't get what I was supposed to get. Like, how do I figure out beforehand that guy's not going to make it? And I said, well, most people don't make it, right? They just don't ever do that. And we had this dialogue about it, and I said, wait a minute, you're the guy that they put, like, you just do the basic things every day for years, and they put you on a stage and we watch you, and you know, people interview you and you say, yeah, I just show up every day and do the normal shit. And you think that it's like normal that anybody else is going to, no, you're on a stage for doing that because nobody does it. Like, people don't do that. So it's the hardest thing in any business is finding the right people, and the people that look like they're going to be great are usually not great. And the ones that you're like, I don't know if this guy's going to be great, will surprise you. You never know. Now, I had the CEO of our company ask me, like, how do you know? How do you know if somebody's going to be good or not? And I said, there's so many different ways I couldn't really know, but the one thing I look for is somebody that's been told that they're not good enough for a long period of time and continues to show up.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's funny. I was geeking out before we were preparing for this podcast, and do you know I still have all of my notes from when you were coaching me? It was like 6 or 7 years ago.
It's kind of crazy. It's a stat.
I still have mine. I still have my notes from coaching you.
There's probably a lot of red pen in there. But one of the things that we were talking about that I wasn't even going to bring it up, but you sort of went down that road, and you were telling me when you're hiring, you want to look for somebody, or recruiting, maybe somebody who's got like the broken wing mentality, right? Or another way to look at it is somebody who's the head of the household, somebody who has to provide, somebody who has to, you know, bring something to the table for the family, or the family's not going to survive, right? So ultimately, I think that's sort of saying the same thing, right? You're looking for people who, it's not just the icing on the cake, right?
Yeah, but it's somebody who has something to prove, but is like feeling like they can't get in there, but they have that desire to do it, right? Yeah. So it's that hate towards somebody to make them, prove them wrong is like a big desire to do. And I think those people will be the ones that surprise you more than anything else.
Well, here's the thing that always comes up on this, and it's a slight segue, but I think it's important. People always ask me about their why. What drives me? Why? What's my why? I don't have a why. What's yours? Can I borrow it? Like, I need a why. And you know, someone like Mike Ferry would say, "Screw your why. You don't need a why." But what people are really asking is, in my opinion, what do you use for fuel? What do you use for fuel? And I think this is one of the most interesting parts about what we do, because everybody's different on this, but nobody can ever figure it out. And I have these conversations still with people all the time in a non-coaching type setting where they're like, I just want to do something with myself, and I want to do something with my business, and I want to take it to the next level. But they can never figure out what it is that actually drives them. They're like, I think I want to retire at this. No, you don't. Right. You haven't even thought about, like, you're not, do you get a boner thinking about getting retired? Yep. Is that what you get excited about? No, nobody's excited about that. So why are you excited? Like, what actually gets you pumped up about this? And Mike Ferry asked me that on stage in 2019. In like, DC, were you there? I didn't know he was going to ask me that. And at the time I was like, he said, what do you use for fuel? Or he said something like, what drives you? Something like that. And I was like, look, some days it's awards, some days it's ego, some days it's money, some days it's sex, and some days it's just the status. Like, I don't know. I just mix it all in. Right. And so people, what was it? You were talking about something from your notes that I wanted to tie that back to.
Broken wing.
Yes. So you never know what's going to drive somebody but they've got something to prove to somebody, and they've got somebody they've got to provide for. It's way easier to peel yourself off the floor than it is to take yourself to be a number one. It's way easier.
Tim Grover says that the top performers in the industry have demons, right? And I feel like the top performers in our industry have demons that they play with the games with themselves. Like they'll say, if I don't make these calls or do this deal, my kid dies, or something happens that's going to be ill
playing
to
like
them.
messed up games with themselves.
Just so that way it drives them. Yeah,
burn
because
your
when you have
ships
everything, it's hard to want to keep pushing harder and harder and harder.
That's sadistic. I'm down with that.
It's a great way to do it. So with recruiting being a big part of building a team, how do you find people, good people, to join your team?
Like the good people you've found. How
That's
have you
a good
found?
question.
Yeah.
That's a great question because we struggled with this. We were like, okay, we're going to get a spreadsheet of everybody that does this many deals to this many deals, and we're going to just attack them.
We're doing that now.
Video, text, email.
So
yeah, like we're going to just
doesn't
find
work?
these
That doesn't
people.
work?
This way, right? I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying it didn't really work immediately for us. But I'll tell you what did.
Yeah.
So I was literally sitting here with my sales manager, and we're like, what, like, this is a great opportunity. Why is it so hard to find people?
I've said that. Yeah.
What is the what? I mean, we're going to pay someone like 150 grand. Why can't you find anybody that wants to do this job? So I said, what's this lady over here that's the number one agent, like in my office, great agent, 75 years old, and recruits her ass off and always has 5 new people on her team. And she's a friend of mine, and I'm like, where do you find these people? Like, how do you do this? And here's what I know about her, and here's what the answer was. She's like, everywhere I go, I'm always trying to find these people wherever they're at. Hairdresser, somebody's waiting on my table. The personal trainer at the gym, that's who these people are. If you go around this room right here, besides John Scipione, who's a CPA, and nobody else in the world would be a financial advisor before they go into real estate, these people are waiting tables, and they're personal trainers, or they're doing lawn and landscape, right? That's where you find them.
So it's right under your nose, and it's I've had the same experiences. You try to. We haven't had as much luck trying to convert real estate people at other offices to be real estate people on our team, but it's always somebody who wants more, more income, more freedom, better lifestyle, whatever it is, and converting those types of people.
Yeah.
So
yesterday we got a Zillow call from a sales guy trying to sell ad space at a Stop and Shop, and the guy sounded amazing on the phone. He was like, "Yeah, you want some ad space? It's going to get 4,000 views every single week from the customers that come in." And then 2 seconds later, I'm sending it to John. I'm like, "Yo, call this guy. He's awesome for an ISA."
He'd be a great ISA, right?
Yeah, you're great at that. You hire people when people call you with a great sales call. You hire.
We're trying,
them. I love
man.
that.
We're trying. We're getting there.
Yeah.
That's a good answer, by the way. I forgot that. I should have remembered that.
Yeah, well, turning the tables works sometimes, but that's what we're trying to implement every single day. Is just finding good people out there and seeing how they would be a benefit to our overall business, whether it's agents or just people in our office and staff and such. Yeah. So tell us, I wrote down a question for you. Tell us, what are 3 habits that new agents are not necessarily willing to do? New agents are not willing to do, and maybe that's why they don't make it.
I'd say new agents, but also people in general, are not willing to do the things that are uncomfortable. Right. One of the things that I was coached on directly for a long time was basically identifying that whatever it is that's most uncomfortable at any moment is probably what you should be doing.
Yep.
So there's still this line of thinking that is, there should be I've earned a certain level of comfort.
Yep.
So I'm 19 years in the business, and I'm standing at the desk I work at every day, and I've got a group of salespeople that are right outside that door. And at 8:48, when we have our huddle in the morning, I'm on the leaderboard too, and I start prospecting also. And my numbers are there, and they can see my numbers, and I can see theirs. And I do think that a lot of people in this type of a role would say, I don't need them to see my numbers. I'm building the business. I'm going to be back here Wizard of Ozing while they're out here doing the prospecting. But I don't prospect with them. I'm prospecting, and they're prospecting with me from 9 to noon every single day until I can work myself out of production, which is probably take 2 to 3 years.
So doing the things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was one thing. That was kind of windish. All right.
Yeah, that works.
Is there one or two others? Things that
sure.
they're not willing to do, and maybe that's why they don't survive, or that's why they don't get it to the next level.
this is going to be a shift. This answer is going to be a little bit different, but it's absolutely true. They're not willing to engage the people they know at a professional level.
I know that was something I struggled with.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing ever is to get someone to call their database. They're just like, nah, I'm not doing that, because that, I don't know what it is about when you play doctor with people, that just buzzes and lights people up.
Yeah, I just had like a funny flashback. Because I was reading our notes from our calls, like I said, coaching calls 5-6 years ago, and you were like, John, you can be funny, but you're sort of like dry, and you need to have a good sense of humor. And then I think shortly after that, I went to prospecting school with you. You had convinced me to go, and I'm standing next to you, and you're just whipping through calls, and then all of a sudden you're like, Grandma, hey, and dude, you were just going through Mojo, and I was like, David, do you have your grandmother in Mojo on your dialer? And
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I guess unless you were calling somebody else grandma, but it's no. Listen, I think there's people on our team, and I struggle with that for a long time, that are hesitant to ask people that are in their circle of friends or in their family, or people that are really, they'll ask strangers for money, but they won't ask their friends and family, and it's awkward. But
it's all ego, is what I've come to find out about that. It's always all ego, and people struggle with that because they're like, I'm not egotistical. I'm not like, I don't. Yeah, but you're protective of whatever you think that people currently think about you. And whatever you think they're thinking about you is not that impressive, and it's far less than you think they're thinking about you. So it seems to be always related to that. If you can break through that, that's a game change. So that was two.
Nah,
do we have to get a third?
No,
I think we'll let you off on that one.
Right,
Yeah. If you had to flip the question, what would you say are some of the common characteristics of a top performing agent to look for?
Or maybe what are the top characteristics of the top performing agent on your team?
Yeah, sure.
It's going to be kind of a pat answer, but what I'm looking for is raw enthusiasm mixed with conscientiousness. Difficult pairing. It's a very difficult pairing, because if I look at my team and I say, who would I want to do business with? Like, who would I hire off of my team? I'd be looking for someone that has, they say that basically any successful person is going to have to be able to hold two opposing thoughts at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that? Okay. So like the two opposing thoughts are, you've got to listen to me, you've got to be aware, you've got to be caring, you've got to really dig in on what I'm looking for and help me. The second thing is you got to be really aggressive, and you got to not show emotion. You got to not care and go after this deal. And these two things, if you can blend these in any way where there's a level of conscientiousness with this forward enthusiasm, they can't lose. I don't even care what they say or how they say it. If they use that, they'll win.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because as I was asking you that, I was like, what are the top qualities of the top producing agent on our team, right? So there's an agent on our team. Mm-hmm. She's been a buyer's agent with us 1.5 years. Her name is Nikki, and I'm trying to think of some of the qualities that makes her a rock star. And it's, I would say this if she was sitting right here. I mean, she's not the most enthusiastic, loudest person in the room. She's not. I wouldn't say she's the most outgoing, right? In a public setting or like a party, she's probably not the person who's just jumping into conversations.
Yeah, but would she be excited if I was being enthusiastic? Yeah. If I was being enthusiastic, would she get excited with me?
And hold the conversation and really vibe that way. I think, but what makes her super successful is she's persistent as all fuck, man. She just, the story that I always think of is I don't know. She put somebody under contract 5-6 months ago, and me and KIRO. I think KIRO printed out the email
harassment chain.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
He printed out the email chain, and she must have called this guy. It was like the follow-up boss chain or the email chain or what it was. And it was like, you ever just go back and you're like, I'm the only one talking to this person. Yeah. You're just like, hey, just following up. Wanted to see if you guys wanted to see some homes this weekend. Hey, just reaching out. Did you get the email I sent you? And it was just all her. And then all of a sudden he was like, hey, I'm ready. And then she was like, the next correspondence was like, we just submitted the offer on your behalf. But just someone who's persistent as all hell. And that's been the big thing for us, for sure.
Yeah, which is strong. Cool.
Yeah.
Gotta love that.
So let's see here. We sort of touched upon that a little bit already, but I wanted to touch upon one of the lessons that you had shared with me. Again, I'm nerding out on those notes that I was going through from our coaching calls, and one of the big takeaways that we always talked about was rejection, right? And seeking out more rejection. So I wrote down something here from one of our calls. Again, I think it was like December 2017. You said every real estate office is filled with people that avoid rejection. Every business idea they come up with is based on where they can go to experience the least amount of rejection. So what does this mean to you? How do you instill this sort of thought and this philosophy into your agents? And do you?
Well, I can tell you that I had a meeting with my agents yesterday because we have an 8:48 huddle every day. And I try to bring something that's just kind of pertinent to where we're at right now. And it was kind of on this topic because I don't find that, people need updates on the marketplace every single day. Like they'll look at that information, but they need a mindset update a lot. And so the title of my meeting yesterday, which was about a 5-minute meeting, was Fuck Your Feelings.
Say that one more time. I didn't hear you. There you go.
Did you kind of so? But here, so I came into the meeting. I said, guys, listen, I want to start by saying, something that I really mean, and I want you to know this. Fuck your feelings. And they're like, ha, ha. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. Fuck your feelings. We've got a job to do. You get to come here and put all that shit out and focus on what we're doing and find a deal and get paid. And you don't answer to anybody except me. And I'm not bothering you. Like, this is the best job in the world. This is great. You got to get these people you got 1 or 2 people to say yes. Like that's the best thing possible. Why am I hearing about, and they got the deal and then this happened? Why? Yeah. Why am I hearing any of that? I love your feelings. So the rejection piece is listen, it's hard. People have their own stories. People have their own shit. I got people on my team that they've been through some real shit. I got people on my team that were professional athletes. And then someone came in and said, you don't play anymore. You're fired. Like they've been through, and then they're like, okay, I guess I'm a real estate agent now. Great guy, but he's working through some of that mindset shit where it's like, I got to figure out how to win because this doesn't
that plays into what you said before. Somebody told him
he couldn't do it.
He couldn't do it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's right. And you're counting on that because your competition's hearing it every day. And that's the other thing we talk about right now, especially. I'm so enthused by the marketplace because everybody else is scared shitless. I just love it. I dug in on expireds today. I couldn't wait. I haven't been this excited about expireds for a while. I literally had a guy today who said he couldn't meet me tonight. I said, drive to my office right now.
Really?
And awesome. He did. And I said, I'm not kidding you. This happened today. And he signed a $400,000 listing after 15 minutes in my office because I said, drive here now. And he did. That's how amped up I am about
in the fact that rates are rising and that people are nervous?
No, that nothing degrades faster than the mindset of your competition. Yep. And everything I hear from them is, oh, the market, no inventory, no houses, no buyers, interest rates. Yeah. It's the best. I tell them, I go out to the kitchen here and I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God, look around like, guys, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? They're like, I don't know. I got nothing.
I was telling John when we were preparing for this, when we went to go shadow you, I don't know what this was, like a couple months ago. When we were in your office, you were making expired phone calls. It's like almost like your addiction. And when you were making a call, you had this one lady answer, and she was just like, who's this, another agent? Out of nowhere, you go, and she keeps laughing again. And then you go, and then she's like, yeah, I'm selling. You're like, all right, great. When do you want to meet? And then you close her for the appointment right there and then. And I was like, what the hell was that about? And you're like, it's just being consistent with your skills, because somebody who's weak in mindset and skills would stop right there and then.
But let's put one more nugget in here, right here, because this is important. There is a power frame. What people need to recognize when you see something like that, where someone goes,
Power
"Oh, we need
versus
another agent."
force.
And
Yep.
I go, "Ha, ha, 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 ha." Not only power versus force, but who cares less about this engagement, them or me? Who's in control of this engagement?
Yep.
Who is the prize, you or me? Now, the other agents are like, well, what would you like me to do, ma'am? You want me to send you an email? I'll do whatever you want. And she's like, yeah, no, thank you. Send me it to, pissoff@gmail.com. The power frame was, I don't need you either. I'm going to move right on. I'm going to help somebody else. But if you need help, I'm probably the guy to help you. And if you can get that frame right, then you've got an opportunity.
You know, I wrote down from my notes, my biggest takeaway from you was mindset and the power versus force. That concept, when you explained it to me,
Yeah,
that
we talked
concept
about
when you
that a
explained
lot.
it to me was amazing because I was like an Energizer bunny on crack. And then David
you
would be
were?
like, maybe I still am. He was like, slow down. Power, not force. Can you explain what that concept means?
Well, I can tell you what it means to me. I mean, there's books written on it, and I'm not the aficionado on this. I didn't make it up, and I learned a lot about it from our head coach Mike Ferry and some other people in the organization. But I can tell you what it means to me and how I apply it, because I went through a really tough time with this personally, which is the only reason I could even come close to trying to coach you on it was because I really screwed it up, and I was very flawed on this. But it's this period where you realize I've got this skill set. Like I've got this. I've got the scripts. I've got the number. Like I've got something and I can use it. And then you misapply it. So somebody's looking at you like, yeah, I think I'm like, would you like me to handle the sale for you? And they're like, yeah, I'm not really sure. And you just lean on them like, give it to me, lady, give it. Right? And then she's like, and then even if you take the listing, they call back the next day and they're like, we want out. And I did a lot of that. Or I set the appointment with a for sale by owner. I mean, I set the appointment with the maid. She didn't even own the house. I'm like, I'm coming over. And she's like, fine. Like, I show up and they're like, that's the maid. Like, she doesn't even work. Yeah. She doesn't own the home. So there was just raw power, right? But here's I think the answer to your question. When someone truly deserves something and they truly are the best option, how do they act?
Like they deserve it, not like they want it.
And there's no force to that. It's mine.
Yeah.
So I believe everything I have is mine. And everything that's meant to be mine is mine.
Yeah.
So why do I have to remind it that it's mine?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's bigger than real estate, but that's the truth. Like, I'm a good option for this listing. Everything I'm saying is resonating. We know it is because it's the truth. If you sign it now, that's great. If you wait till tomorrow, I'll be in the business tomorrow. That's fine. Yeah. And it's not a trick. It's not a tactic. And that's the way we talked about it. It's not a tactic. It's getting really clear on resonating the truth with someone and making sure that it is the truth.
Yeah. I think it's important to know your own value before you demonstrate it or portray it to somebody else. Because if you don't know
that scares the shit out of people, though.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? Tell us more.
Well, if I had a salesperson in front of me on my team and they say, well, like, I'm trying this whole thing, and I'm like, well, why would someone hire you? Why would they?
Yeah.
Because I'm a real estate agent? No. Why would they hire you?
Yeah.
Because I need the money? No. Like, you don't even know. Like, you have no clue why.
Yeah.
Why would they hire? Get clear on that. Like, I'm clear on why you'd hire me. And even if I can't say it perfectly, which I can, but even if I couldn't say it perfectly, if I know why, it resonates.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's true. It's something that's interesting. I think there's what people see and there's what's true. It drives me insane when we see like social media influencers in real estate saying that they're the best or whatever the case it is, but then they're horrible in the value that they provide their clients, right? Meanwhile, when you're committed to the success and the skills building up to be able to deliver that to your clients, when you're in an appointment, you don't have anything to show off or whatever the case it is. Your essence and that confidence that you're exuding portrays all of that in one. So it's not about having to even say anything. It's more or less just having that in your...
Yeah.
John's face looks confused as hell with that statement, by the way.
Well, there's more power.
No.
More power versus force.
I think it's how you portray it,
Yeah.
right? If you're sitting there saying, if it's coming across like you need the listing, or it needs to be immediate. Or I think the problem is that we were also so we had our blinders on for so long, or at least I did, where I was like, I'm supposed to be at 15 listings, I'm at 12. I'm supposed to be at 15, I'm at 12. And you're just like trying to find the other one, and just bulldozing people, like you said, like taking appointments with the maid and not necessarily listening to anything that was not, yes, I'll sign the listing agreement,
Yeah.
So,
But that was a great quality that you had, and that was an important part of the process. And it is an important part of the process. And that's what people need to understand is there's foundational, there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You have to start by wearing people out before you can really get in touch with what they need.
Yeah.
And maybe you can skip that step if you're a little older and more experienced, or you got your ego in check, but I haven't met that person yet.
Yeah. When you started coaching me, I related so much with you because you started real estate at a young age. You had family from the restaurant business as well, or you started in the restaurant business as well. For me, I know why I started in real estate. I'm just curious to know, because you never told me, why did you pick the industry you're in?
I worked at my dad's restaurant since I was a kid, and I started waiting like bussing tables and sweeping the floor when I was like 12. And I worked every job in the building. And when I was about 13 years old, I met a guy who was a really big advertising guy in town. Like, he invented the Happy Meal, and he lives real close to us. And he came in to eat dinner one night, and I was sweeping the floor, and he's like, "Hey, come over here." And I'm like 13 or something. And we knew the guy was a big deal, but I didn't know why. And he said, "My parents used to own a restaurant." And I was like, "Well, why didn't you work at their restaurant?" And he's like, "Well, I went on to college and I did some other things, and then now I'm doing advertising, and that's what I enjoy." And I'm like, "So you don't have to work at the parents' restaurant?"
Like forever?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that, right? So like that was the first time that it occurred to me that I did not have to work there. But about 10, it was 8 or 9 years later that it wasn't enough. I wasn't getting, I couldn't have enough autonomy to run the business the way I wanted. And even then at 22 years old, I had ideas about processes. Like, I wanted 4 butters on the table and 2 ounces of salad dressing. Why I'm wired that way, I don't know. But I'm fighting with these old people about 2 ounces of salad dressing, and they're like, "I don't care." So the guy that sold my parents' house was like, "You'd be great at this." And I'm like, "Why? I'm a knucklehead." And I was an idiot. Why would I be good at that? So I started doing that during the day. My dad was paying me $35,000 to be the manager of the restaurant. I made $42,000 in 6 months selling real estate to people at the bar. And my dad fired me because he was like, "This is bullshit. You can't do both. You need to choose right now which one you're going to do." And I said, "I'll see you."
That's a good story. I never heard that one.
Yeah. How did you take the
I don't tell it.
because I'm assuming your father was giving you shit about it, right? And talking it down, like, "Oh, you're going to go do that." How did you handle that rejection and that kind of negativity when it was picking between the two?
Well, that's kind of a deep question, but when the
It's-
people
it's,
that are
it
supposed
gets
to care
deeper.
about you most. Oh, good, I'm glad. I don't mind it, by the way, but I'm just going to warn you, it's a deep answer. When the people that are supposed to care about you most are threatened by you and cause problems because of that, it's the most difficult type of emotional pain to deal with. But it's also fuel, and we talked about fuel. So everybody should have somebody on their shoulder where you're saying, "I'm going to show that motherfucker exactly who the boss is around here." And you need to be thinking that all the time. So that dude was on my shoulder for years. And I'd invite him over to my house, like, "Come take a look at this place. What do you think? Who's your dad?"
I love that. That's awesome.
Well, I feel like while we're on that topic, it's a good segue. So, could you tell everybody a little bit about the V Squad, how it started, and because I'm not asking for like the cheesy sentimental reasons. I mean, obviously there's that component, but how did this whole thing start? And like, I'll let you take it from there. Tell everybody what it is and.
Well, I'll say, like I say that in jest about my dad. I have a good relationship with my dad, and I would say that if he was here right now, because I do like dunking on his ass. And I mean this. I think it's important for someone to have that and to mean it and to have something that really drives them. So I don't mean it like in a in an arrogant way, like it sounds. I mean, I'm being funny, but I mean it sincerely. That it was a really difficult thing for me, and it's important for you to overcome those things, and that's what this business gives you an opportunity to do, which I think is cool. So V Squad started as I was filming my son, because I have 4 kids, and I have an 11-year-old and 3 9-year-olds.
3 9-year-olds, wow.
Well, 3 9-year-olds, yeah. And when you didn't even know that, right?
I found out.
Yeah. How long did I?
Just right.
Yeah, I coached for
2
how
years.
long? 2 years. Isn't that funny? So, but when they were like 6 and 4, so I had 1 6-year-old and 3 4-year-olds, and I drive them to school every day. And when I had 1 6-year-old, I just started interviewing him, or I talked to him, and he had these answers that I was just like, a lot of healing is in that relationship for me, like with my son, because I'm, father and son type dynamic, and this kid, I'm trying to do my best with this relationship. So I was like, God, this is pretty cool. I'm going to start recording it. So at that time, it was called Mornings with Bo. And that's my oldest son. And we were doing Mornings with Bo. And then I had 3 more kids, and I take them to school every day still. I make them breakfast every day at 6:45. I do my exercise at 6. I make them breakfast at 6:45. I take them to school at 7:15 every day. Now, V Squad is me filming them and talking to them about life and what's going on in their life. And it just turned out to be kind of humorous and kind of informative. And it wasn't meant to be a show. It wasn't meant to be a public thing. It wasn't. That's why I think it's so cool, is because I don't do it on a regular basis. I don't do it unless it feels right and there's a good topic. And I'm not doing it for anything. It's gotten me business, and it gets me. People say that to me more than anything when I'm out in public. And they tell my kids, like, you're famous. We love watching you on V Squad. And my kids love it. They just absolutely love it, because they do think, a couple of them really do think they're famous. And they just think it's the
what was
thing.
one of the topics you guys talked about recently? I feel like I've missed a few of them.
One of the things that we talked about that people were surprised that we talked about is we talked about racism. And I did it impromptu with the kids, because I don't edit that. And I could choose not to post it, but I just film it, and they say whatever they say, and I post it. And so we were talking about something that was going on with their school or something like that, and something that was going on with some woke policy or some racism or something like that. And I said, what about this person at school and their skin color and this type of stuff? And I don't remember what happened. It's on my Facebook. And it's shared public. But she said something like, it hadn't occurred to me that this person was black. And I didn't know that, but, and she answered the question after that and said something like that. And so we were having this conversation about, don't you think it's interesting that there's this discussion about kids and whether or not they understand racism? Didn't she even know the girl was black? She even knows she was different. She just, so that was a topic that people were like, I can't believe that you talked about that. But I thought, isn't that what we're supposed to be talking about?
Well, I don't know. It's funny. It's like, these are the sort of, like, when I watch those, I'm like, all right, I guess I could have kids. Because I feel like that's like, to me, is like what's enjoyable.
Kids
is like,
are dope, man. Kids are dope.
Is like teaching them and like watching them like learn and grow and, but
dude, when my kids were
I was just going to say, I feel like so many people probably get in the car and give the kid the iPad or, put on the radio. And, I appreciate that. And I
David's
always
a natural teacher. That's the thing.
Yeah.
When we first started coaching, he was talking to me about health as a foundation, and then I was like, "Isn't this supposed to be coaching for real estate sales?" He was like, "Yeah, but you need to get your mind straight."
Am I on the wrong call?
What are you talking?
He's like, "Fuck your feelings, boy."
Verbatim.
And fuck your Mr. Hero for lunch.
I won't tell you anymore, but that's.
Yeah, listen, John, when you have kids, you do it the same way I did it. I said, look, I'm a great dad for an hour and a half a day. Don't fuck with me above and beyond that. I'll take them to school. I'll make them breakfast. I'll tuck them to bed at night. Everything else is mine. And don't ask me about their socks or any of that shit. That's what allows me to be a good dad. We have a great understanding around that, and I get to be the dad I want to be. Everybody else has, from my perspective, they're like, you need to be here for this. Well, you got 15 hours of softball on front. No, I don't.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Speaking of lessons to your kids, what was one of the biggest lessons that you were given from your parents as a kid?
My parents were a great lesson on what not to do with a lot of things, and they still are in a lot of ways. So And I don't mean that as disrespectful as it sounds, but you know, they were not trying to set out to be a good example or tell me how to live a good life. But that's, and they're not terrible people, and I still have a relationship with them, but they weren't like this, and they weren't like, hey, let's talk about what happened today and see how you can handle it better. So I had 3 younger sisters. I felt like I was their dad, and I would shame them and tell them you're home by 11 o'clock, and if not, I'm gonna drag you out of that park.
My sister would call me the second father.
Why?
She's like, to this day she still says it.
Yeah, I don't answer to you. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I'll drag you out of that son of a bitch by your hair. You do now. Yeah. So I learned a lot of things. Let me give you a different answer to that too. I learned a lot of work ethic from my father, because I never saw him until I was 14 when I went to work with him, and maybe it was unhealthy, but that dude worked.
I could totally relate to that.
So if there's one lesson that, if you could only share, let's say it this way, if you could only share one lesson with your kids on the topic of, let's say, being successful, what would that lesson be?
And you couldn't share anything else. It was your last lesson.
The lesson that I would have for anybody is start right now accepting the fact that nobody owes you anything. Nobody. Not me, not your best friend, not the people that you think owe you things, not the people that have told you all the way up until now that they will give you something. Nobody owes you anything. It seems like more angst and more turmoil and more difficulty and more misunderstanding about the world comes from, I really thought that this was going to happen. I really thought that these people would work with me. I really thought that I'd get this money. I really thought.
Yeah.
Nobody owes you shit.
Yeah. What's funny is as you were saying that, I felt like I was in the back of your car. and yeah.
Nobody owes you shit, John.
That was perfect.
But Dad,
okay, that's good. And what would you say for you? I know you said the advertisement guy had an impact on you. Who would you say had the biggest impact on you, being, that you'd give the credit to being where you are today? And what was the biggest lesson you learned from them?
It's going to sound kind of like a set-up answer. It's really not. I mean, Mike Ferry ripped my ass so many times.
I hope in a good way.
Yeah. And the only way, I was looking for a long time for someone that would just tell me the truth. And so I was seeking out these people that would just, like, I want to improve, but I'm not getting any feedback I can use. Because people would tell me, like, you're great. Here's all the talents you have. And there's always people around that will tell you what you want to hear. I was really trying to find the people that would tell me the stuff that I didn't want to hear. And I've been really down that path for, probably 10 years. Mike Ferry told me some pointed things that I really took to heart. And then some of his coaches continued some of those messages. But I'd probably have to say
that's
him.
Awesome. And what would you say is the biggest lesson or biggest takeaway you've taken from him?
The biggest takeaway
the biggest
I got
lesson
from Mike Ferry?
that you took away from Mike?
I would say, well, let me say that something that's been the most impactful for me has been the community of people that came along with the decision to be there. And I don't sell people coaching. I'm not a coach anymore. I'm not, overly involved in the community other than the people that I'm friends with, like you guys, and the people that I've collected, which I'm very thankful for. But what Mike would say things like, you've got to get around other people that are spending more money than you, that are doing things you're not doing, and this exposure to other people. When I first, got into the organization, I was like, why do I have to go to Las Vegas to meet realtors? Like, there's realtors here, and there's no houses there that I'm trying to sell. It made no sense to me at all. It really didn't. And once I finally got there and I met this guy that was selling 150 houses a year with one eye, and he was a pirate. I mean, he's like got a peg leg and like dandruff, and he's selling 150 houses. And I'm thinking I'm a big deal. I sold like 45 houses. I think I'm a big deal. And then I see this guy, and it pops the top. There's nothing there's nothing that will do that other than being around the people that are
That's
humbling
powerful.
you in that way.
I think that the people at the top always say when you're there, be calm. Don't let the ego and all that excitement get to you. Be calm, be chill, because it could be gone tomorrow and you just have to constantly work hard at it as if it's almost like being chased after. So I think that's a big mindset to keep in mind too, and being surrounded by those people.
Well, it brings up an interesting point on that. I believe that the harder it is to attain something, the harder it is to lose it. So, and I didn't make that up, but I believe it. So what that means is, like, if I build up this skill set and I build up these sales and I build up 20 years of experience, there's a lot of work that goes into that. And it took a long time to get there. So there's a lot less fear about just losing it, where it's like, yeah, didn't that guy used to sell? No, like, no, I am a mainstay here.
Right.
I'm the consistent.
Right.
They are the variable. I'm going to be here because I've put in the work over time. And I tell my team, you know, even if there was nobody on the end of the line here, and these were all actors that you were calling, you're still doing things that are making you stronger, and the repetitions will create that longevity and create a position for you that's really hard to lose.
That's a good point. It's interesting because when we shadowed you too, your team that we met, you treated them more than family, right? So it's like if they put in that work effort, they're protected too, right? In essence, as they become super valuable as they're a part of your brand as well. So that's pretty cool.
So David, of what you've built today, this team that's going to do 200 transactions this year, what would you say that you're, let's say, most proud of? Yeah, because I feel like you're pretty humble, and that's not something that we could normally pull from you. What are you most proud of?
I mean, you touched on it earlier. I'm most proud of those kids, but I don't take any credit for them being. I think they just kind of show up that way, and you just kind of hope that you don't screw them up too bad. But with the team, what I'm most proud of is that I have created, or at least I'm a part of an environment that I show up every day, and I'm actually excited to work there, and I think they are too. And it comes with like these core values of like, we're all just trying to get through this together. At first I thought it was kind of cheesy. It was like, we need core values because that's what companies do, right? And you list them out and you're like integrity and relentless and like, these are cool, fine. These are great words, but over time, like they feel it, and it's true. I'm there every day, and I'm winning with them every day. And if I ask them, like, how do you feel about the work that you're doing, and how did today go, and how, like, that's their reality. I'm really proud of their accomplishment, which I didn't know that was ever really going to be a big part of my life. And now I can see that building that team and making them successful is probably the coolest thing I'll ever do.
So let's assume that your life depended on this and you had to come up with a game plan to double your business this year. What would be 3 things that you would do almost immediately?
Oh, that's cool. I die if I don't double my business, or triple?
So you have to double your business for this calendar year or you die. What are 3 things that you would do?
I would recruit 5 more people immediately. I would increase my ad spend by 100%. And I would hire 3 more assistants.
5 new people, double ad spend, and 3 assistants. Why aren't you doing that now?
Yeah. I gotta go.
We've run out of time.
I think that's an interesting question when you think about it like that.
It's an awesome question. It's a great question, and it's one that I'll think about.
All right, I'll take my referral fee on that one. That'd be great.
A pro.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, no, I think it's something that we all have to think about. It's like,
you nailed it.
If you can answer it as quickly as you did, it's like, well, shit. Well, why aren't we doing it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you know the answer,
well,
I mean, I guess it's just not that easy, of course, right? I mean,
Well, it is. It is. It's just not simple. It is that easy. I know that that's what I'm building. I know that I need people in place there.
So for everybody watching, can you explain what that board is? Because you mentioned it earlier when we were off screen.
That's just an org chart. I mean, that's how many people I need to do 1,000 deals. So that's the BHAG that's on my business plan to do 1,000 deals, and that's how many agents and how many staff and how many people in the call center and how many listing agents and how many deals they're going to do.
Give us a little bit of a tidbit. What does that look like for you with the structure built out? Yeah, like, so how many listing agents do you need? How many buyer's agents do you need? Support staff?
Well, there's 4 listing agents on there, and there's 12 buyer-focused agents, 4 listing agents on the sales team, and then there's a sales manager that runs that. In the closing management department, you've got transaction manager and then 3 transaction manager assistants with VAs supporting them. VAs are also supporting each layer of the top salespeople here that are doing in excess of 75 deals. Then you've got call center, where there's VAs calling, listing management with marketing, and then over there you've got the marketing department with website photos.
Awesome, man.
Finance.
And how many years out to 1,000? 3-year plan.
That's 3 years.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
That's a
Knowing
3-year
you, I
plan.
think it's going to be done in 2, but
I don't know. That's
Well,
a
that's
lot of
awesome.
deals, man.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully this was valuable for you. I'm absolutely certain everybody who sees this will see tremendous value. And, you know, that was one of the reasons we started doing these is that, you know, somebody said to us, listen, you're having all these high level conversations with these people throughout the country. You know, we had our lender on last week and he's number 3 in the whole country. You know, we've had a few other high level real estate people and you know, you certainly lived up to it. So we appreciate you joining us today. And if there's, what's the best way for people to reach out to you? What's the best contact?
Probably Facebook would be the easiest. Anybody can email me too, david@thevanoygroup.com, VAN,
Awesome.
capital N-O-Y.
Awesome. And you guys, you're based in Kansas City, Kansas, but you also work in
2 markets.
2 markets?
Well, I'm on state line, so I'm in Missouri and Kansas, but you know it's Kansas City metropolitan. So I'm in Leawood, Overland Park, Lee Summit, Kansas City, right on the state line. So yeah, if somebody's watching this and they have referrals, then
Awesome.
Fantastic.
they
Well,
can
don't
definitely
hesitate to
out.
reach out to David. I'm certain he'll make time for you. He's always made time for us. And you know, if you like the podcast, please hit the subscribe button below so you can be notified about our future episodes. We really appreciate your time, Mr. Van Noy, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Coach.